1989, Tokyo, Japan. The Nikkei hits a record high, and 8 of the world's 10 largest companies are Japanese. Japan is dominating, and America is terrified. Japan's GDP per capita is 10% higher than America's, a reflection of its rapid post-war industrial growth, high productivity, and efficient manufacturing systems. The country's unique blend of public-private collaboration, strategic investment in high-value industries, and cultural emphasis on discipline and innovation contributed to this economic edge. For context, while the U.S. was grappling with inflation and trade deficits in the 1980s, Japan's focus on exports and technological advancements propelled its economy forward. This disparity was a significant factor in fueling both admiration and fear of Japan's economic dominance during this era. The Rockefeller Center, an American icon, is owned by the Japanese, and movies like Blade Runner imagine a future ruled by the Japanese. It felt like the rising sun would never set, or so it seemed. In 1990, the Nikkei dropped 38% and lost $2 trillion of market value. And even now, in 2024, Japan's wages have yet to recover to levels seen during the economic miracle. So, what went wrong? This is Japan, the setting of the rising sun. Japan's economic miracle. To understand Japan's economic miracle, we need to go back to the post-war period in the late 1940s, a time when the nation lay in ruins both physically and economically. Picture this: cities like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, reduced to ashes, served as haunting reminders of the devastation wrought by World War II. The country's infrastructure was shattered, its industrial base obliterated, and millions of its citizens were displaced, mourning loved ones lost in the war. Factories stood silent, their smokestacks crumbling, and the economy teetered on the brink of collapse. Yet, in this dire moment, seeds of resilience began to take root. What followed was nothing short of a transformation, a phoenix rising from the ashes of its destruction, setting the stage for an economic miracle that would astonish the world. Following its surrender, Japan became partially occupied by the U.S. government, and its economy entered a deep recession. The country was in shambles, its factories were destroyed, much of its labor force was dead, and its trade relations were severely frayed. The situation was dire. How did a nation reduced to rubble in 1945 become the second largest economy in the world by 1989? The answer lies in a mix of foreign intervention, policy brilliance, and an unyielding cultural work ethic. The U.S. was deeply worried that Japan, like China, would fall into communist arms. To prevent this, they initiated aggressive economic reforms. These reforms were the foundation for what would later become known as the Japanese economic miracle. Dismantling the Zaibatsu system. The Zaibatsu system concentrated wealth and power among a few families, creating significant economic inequality. By breaking up these powerful conglomerates, the government created a more equitable economic structure. Land ownership reforms. Land reforms redistributed agricultural land from landlords to tenant farmers, giving ordinary Japanese citizens a stake in the economy and reducing rural poverty. Export-oriented growth. The U.S. supported Japan's export-led growth strategy, starting with its involvement in the Korean War. Japan supplied goods and services to the U.S. military, creating an initial boost to its industrial base. The results were incredible. From 1953 to 1957, exports of Japanese manufactured goods increased by a staggering 143%. This was driven largely by a focus on textiles, machinery, and consumer electronics, industries where Japan excelled in innovation and cost efficiency. By contrast, the United States saw a 51% increase, primarily in automobiles and heavy machinery, while the United Kingdom experienced a 31% growth, centered on industrial goods and raw materials. Japan's targeted approach to export high-demand products ensured it could outpace its Western competitors significantly. This extraordinary growth was a testament to Japan's efficient production systems, commitment to quality, and ability to tap into expanding global markets. By the late 1950s, Japan was just getting started. Industrial Renaissance. By the late 1950s, Japan realized it needed to shift from low-value goods to high-value industries, This marked the beginning of Japan's manufacturing renaissance, a period when it transformed itself into a global industrial powerhouse. Key investments: automobiles. Japanese car manufacturers like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan invested heavily in quality and efficiency, pioneering concepts like lean manufacturing and just-in-time production. These methods enabled them to produce vehicles that were more reliable and fuel-efficient than their Western counterparts. Electronics. Companies like Sony, Panasonic, and Toshiba became global leaders in consumer electronics, semiconductors, and advanced machinery. The introduction of iconic products like the Sony Walkman revolutionized global culture and set new benchmarks for innovation. The government's role was pivotal. Japan's Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, identified key industries and directed resources toward their development. Instead of merely catching up, Japan leapfrogged legacy technologies, embracing cutting-edge manufacturing processes that propelled it ahead of competitors. By 1965, Japan had achieved a trade surplus for the first time, a significant milestone that underscored the nation's rapid economic transformation. Achieving a trade surplus meant that Japan was exporting more than it was importing, a key indicator of economic strength and global competitiveness. This surplus was driven by the country's focus on high-quality, cost-efficient manufactured goods, which gained increasing demand in international markets. It also marked a turning point where Japan transitioned from being a struggling post-war economy to a dominant player on the world stage, reinforcing its position as a major industrial powerhouse. By 1970, the country had grown exports by 380%, becoming the fifth largest economy on Earth. GDP grew fivefold, eclipsing major economies like China, France, the UK, and West Germany. Imagine going from making cheap knockoffs to inventing technologies that define an era. Japan's industrial pivot was nothing short of revolutionary. The Plaza Accord and the bubble economy. While Japan's export-driven economy was a massive success, it came under increasing scrutiny from the United States and other Western nations. Between 1980 and 1985, the US dollar appreciated nearly 50%, putting intense pressure on American manufacturing. To address these imbalances, the US, Japan, and other major economies signed the Plaza Accord in 1985. What was the Plaza Accord? The agreement aimed to devalue the US dollar and appreciate the Japanese yen. Within 3 years, the yen went from 239 yen per dollar to 128 yen per dollar. The rapid appreciation made Japanese goods significantly more expensive, reducing export demand and softening the overall economy. The bubble builds. In response to slowing exports, the Japanese government cut interest rates to a record low of 2.5% and opened credit markets. This sparked a speculative frenzy in stocks and real estate. Land values skyrocketed, with many speculators valuing land purely for its investment potential rather than its utility. At the peak of the bubble, some estimates suggested the Imperial Palace grounds were worth more than all of California. The banking system, encouraged by the government, handed out loans with little concern for credit quality. By the late 1980s, Japan's economy was dangerously overheated. Speculative investments were at an all-time high, with tales of extravagant land purchases dominating headlines. For instance, the grounds of the Imperial Palace in Tokyo were rumored to be worth more than the entire state of California, showcasing the sheer extent of overvaluation. This speculative frenzy gripped not only seasoned investors, but also everyday citizens who rushed to capitalize on rising asset prices, creating an unsustainable bubble. The euphoria masked the growing cracks in the system, setting the stage for an inevitable collapse. What happens when the most valuable land on Earth loses half its worth overnight? The lost decades. When the bubble burst in 1990, Japan entered a period of prolonged economic stagnation that came to be known as the lost decades. The Nikkei stock index lost nearly $1 trillion in value, and real estate prices fell by an additional $3 trillion. The consequences were severe, and the government's response to the crisis exacerbated the problems. The banking crisis. Japan's banking system was drowning in bad debt. However, instead of allowing insolvent banks to fail and writing off non-performing loans, the government allowed zombie banks to survive. These institutions continued to lend to failing businesses, creating a cycle of inefficiency and economic stagnation. By 1999, the government finally injected public funds into the banking system, but by then, non-performing loans represented nearly 10% of GDP. Zombie banks. Stagnant economy. Could this be the future of any major economy? Fiscal policy failures. The government's fiscal policy was equally flawed. For example, one notable stimulus package introduced in the early 1990s aimed to jumpstart the economy by injecting funds into infrastructure projects and local government initiatives. However, much of the spending was rendered ineffective due to simultaneous tax hikes, such as the 1997 increase in the consumption tax from 3% to 5%, and budget cuts to control public debt. This policy contradiction diluted the stimulus's impact, creating a cycle of half measures that failed to reignite economic growth. Infrastructure projects like highways and bridges were criticized as wasteful, often referred to as bridges to nowhere, and did little to create lasting economic momentum. Demographic crisis, the hidden enemy. Adding to its woes, Japan began to face a demographic time bomb that continues to threaten its economy today. By the late 1990s, the birth rate had plummeted to below replacement levels, and the population was aging rapidly. Currently, more than 29% of Japan's population is over the age of 65, making it one of the oldest societies in the world. The implications are staggering. A shrinking workforce means fewer taxpayers, a decline in consumer demand, and less economic dynamism. At the same time, the government must spend more on pensions and healthcare for the elderly. For instance, Japan's healthcare system is stretched thin, with geriatric care accounting for a significant portion of national expenditure. Pension systems are under immense strain as fewer young workers contribute to support the growing number of retirees. The demographic decline also affects innovation and entrepreneurship, with fewer young people driving new ideas and businesses. Lessons from Japan's rise and fall. Japan's story offers a wealth of lessons for policymakers, businesses, and even individuals. It's a narrative filled with ambition, innovation, and resilience, but also cautionary tales of mismanagement and unintended consequences. Innovation as a catalyst for growth. Japan's post-war transformation proves that strategic investments in education, technology, and infrastructure can drive economic growth. The focus on high-quality manufacturing and groundbreaking innovations like the Walkman set global standards. The risks of overspeculation. The bubble economy is a stark reminder of the dangers of speculative investments and unregulated lending. These mistakes resonate with the financial crises faced by other countries like the 2008 global recession. Demographic preparedness. Japan's aging population highlights the critical need for proactive measures. Countries with falling birth rates must prioritize policies that encourage work-life balance, family support, and immigration to sustain their labor force. Policy alignment matters. A coordinated approach to monetary and fiscal policy is essential. Japan's combination of stimulus spending and tax hikes in the 1990s was a cautionary example of how conflicting strategies can cancel each other out. The future of Japan, a new chapter? Despite decades of stagnation, Japan remains a global leader in many areas, from robotics to cultural exports. Tokyo, Osaka, and other cities remain hubs of innovation, creativity, and tradition. Looking ahead, Japan is actively pursuing solutions to its challenges. It has embraced automation and robotics to address its labor shortage, and some innovative companies are leveraging AI and green technology to carve out new markets. While these efforts show promise, they are not without their challenges. Could Japan's technological prowess and cultural resilience spark a new economic miracle? Conclusion: Japan's journey and what's next for you. Japan's rise from the ashes of World War II to its status as a global powerhouse was nothing short of extraordinary. Yet its story is also a reminder that no nation is immune to mistakes, whether they stem from hubris, policy missteps, or unforeseen challenges like demographics. Thought-provoking. Question: can Japan overcome its demographic challenges, and could it lead the way in showing other aging nations how to thrive in a new global reality? If this journey through Japan's incredible history has intrigued or inspired you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What other stories of global economic transformation would you like to explore? Call to action. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Japan's economic rise and fall, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we explore the fascinating stories behind mega projects, transformative economies, and lessons that shape our world today. What's next? Comment below on what topic you'd like us to uncover in our next video.